Hey guys, it's Brennan Maynard with Whitetails of New York. Today I want to talk about food plot placement with you guys and help you strategize on your own property on where to place your food sources so that not only can you hunt around them, but actually directs the daylight movement on your property the way you want it, so that it's easier to hunt and at the end of the day is going to make you more successful. The first thing you need to consider when picking out a food plot is where's your access on your property. I see too many people placing their food sources right next to their only access. And when you think about it logically, is you're placing it in an area where you expect to walk by every evening or every morning as you access your tree stands. Um, and, and then you're just going to be spooking the deer off of it. You're going to be hurting your property more than you are helping it at that point in time. If you are going to put a food plot in a place where you're going to spook it off, that's going to become a nocturnal area on your property and a nocturnal food source. Um, the only time a deer is going to relate to that is under the cover of darkness, because that's the only time they're going to feel safe in that area. It's extremely important to make sure that you have your food plots in an area where you're not going to be spooking deer off of them. Many times, especially on our own property here, we don't hunt our food sources, especially our destination food sources. It is strictly a point on our property that we can expect the deer to move towards every single evening throughout the hunting season. Now, I see a lot of people, they put in a ton of work on these food plots. They spend all summer long strategizing about them, planting them. They're really happy and proud of the work that they put into it. And they cannot not sit on them. All they want to do is just sit on their food plots, because of, first of all, they look pretty. And second of all, they put so much time and effort into them. They want to see them work and they want to harvest a deer off of it. Now, you need to think about what you're doing when you're doing that. Actually, an important statistic to look at is one I read on the National Deer Association, had an article about it. They did a study on hunting pressure, and they found that it takes about 275 acres per one hunter in order to see minimal impact on the deer movement. And when you look at your average hunter, not many of us have 275 acres to ourselves. So really what the focus needs to be on is how can we minimize that hunting pressure. And then you go back to this instance where you just put all this time and effort creating this food plot. Now you want to sit on it. You are going to spook deer on that food source. I don't care how good you are, how good you think you are, even if your wind's in the right direction. If you're sitting on that food source, especially with archery equipment in your hand, and you're close enough to that food plot to where you could get a shot off, you're going to spook deer. It's a place that collects a lot of deer, especially in the beginning part of the season before it's been spooked off. There's going to be a lot of deer on that food plot at one time, and most likely they're going to spot you moving around in your tree. You make one mistake, you're going to have 9 doe looking at you, and at that point you're busted. You just ruined your hunt. You've ruined that food source. Not saying that they're not going to migrate back towards it towards the end of the season, but really the bottom line is that food plot is meant as an attractant to help out the rest of your property. That is where we expect the deer to be moving every single evening throughout the hunting season. If you go ahead and you ruin that movement, you've now just ruined the rest of your property. It's a domino effect. We ruin the end goal where those deer want to get to. You've now ruined that doe bedding area and that buck bedding area on the backside of your property. They're no longer going to relate to your property the way you think they were going to relate to it, the way you wanted them to relate to it. So, number one, don't hunt it too much. And that goes back to our point, where to place it. You need to place it where you can access around it. Because if you can't access around it, it's worse than hunting it every single day. Because obviously you're going to be spooking off that food source, and it will become nocturnal. They're only going to relate to it as during the nighttime hours under the cover of darkness. Another thing to think about is how you want the deer to relate to your property and how you want them to move around it. You need to remember that deer are creatures of edge, and they will walk linear style food sources in that linear style fashion. So if you think about this and actually create them and put them in the correct shape, you can direct the daylight movement. You can direct the deer herd around your property the way you want them to move. I see too many people, they go out there and they place a food plot in a linear style fashion pointing right towards a neighbor's property. That's a avid hunter. He's going to be out there. And if I was that deer hunter and that neighbor, I'd be sitting right at the other end of that food plot. The reason for that is because most likely the deer are going to be migrating into that food plot, turning left or right, linear style, walking the edge of it, and going to end up right on that neighbor's property, hopefully to where he has a tree stand if he's an intelligent hunter. So place them and shape them how you want the deer to move. So that's another thing to think about. Where can we get a linear style food plot, and how can we make that, parallel to our borders rather than perpendicular? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to direct the daylight movement of your deer herd. So let's go back to that instance where that landowner just picks an opening on their property, and that seems like the easiest, most intelligent spot to put a food plot. It's going to have the best chance to grow. So that's where they're going to put that food source. Now, let's say that landowner has 10 of these openings on that property. In no specific manner, they're all spread out sporadically across that landscape. Now look what you've got. You've got absolutely zero polling power. You've got no directed movement because you have no idea where those deer are headed every single evening throughout the hunting season. We know on our property that these deer are going to be headed to our main destination food sources, what I'm standing in right now. We have a meadow right here, used to be an old hayfield, and another one about 150, 200 yards in that direction. We have placed the majority of our food in these meadows and these old hayfields. We've got a lot of corn, we've got some brassicas, we've got peas, beans, clover. We've got a big mixture, and that's another video, and I'll hit on that at another time, having that diversity. So we've got all this main destination food source in one area, pulling the deer from different bedding areas, strategically located bedding areas, towards one area. Now from this, we can go ahead, we can add in our kill plots, something that's just off of a destination food source. We can add those in, and that's where I'm going to be hunting, on those and on travel corridors that connect to those. I'm not going to be hunting in this main destination food source because, just as we have talked, if I ruin this food source, this destination food source, I ruin the rest of the property. I have no directed movement, no predictable movement throughout the rest of the hunting season if I spook this off a few times. Yes, you're going to see the most deer on a food source, but there's going to be does and fawns. Your big bucks, your mature bucks, there's going to be back off to the side. And the majority of the time, you're going to be killing your bucks on those travel corridors and maybe those kill plots, not this main destination food source. So keep that in mind as well. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. Be sure to tune in every week for more tips and tactics. And always remember, your success is our success.